Said Africana when I'm on a vibe and I'm on a cover when I'm on a way. So I need a day, wanna run away, as in I wanna leave.
Hey you guys, and welcome back. You are tuning in to the second episode of Nowhere to Hide. So, as I mentioned in the last episode, this episode's topic is going to be on identity overall. And the two topics that I want to mainly touch base on is anxiety and low self-esteem, and basically how I overcame those things and just my journey from where it started to where I am now. But before we get into that, I do want to address something that I did address before in my last episode, but I feel like it's needing to be repeated. But if you didn't tune into episode 1, I basically brought up a lot of racial issues that I experienced at my former school. And my hometown definitely caught wind of that. But because I mentioned those things, there's a lot of talk of who said this, who said that. But I'm wanting to bring this up again because I don't want my audience, I don't want you guys to lose sight of what I'm trying to do here. It's not about me bringing up these touchy subjects to expose these people. Like, there's no point in doing that. And y'all know what'll happen if I do that on the internet. These people are going to lose their jobs, whatever. Like, that's not what I'm here for. This happened about 5 years ago at this point. I know we have all grown to a point where we can look back and you can either be hurt from it still or you can grow from it. And I'm at a point where I've grown from it enough to where I want to share my experience with you guys, and hopefully people who are out there who were going through something similar to what I went through back then, they can hear my story, hear what I'm trying to say, and, they can apply that to their life and be able to, help themselves with what I'm doing. That's the purpose here. That's the purpose for what I'm trying to do. But I want to begin this podcast conversation, though, with a conversation that I had about a few months back with a good friend of mine, Anthony. And me and Anthony both went to the day school together. We actually go way back. We knew each other since 6th grade when he came to the school to when we graduated. So he's seen me through a lot of the stages of my life. Like, he knows me pretty well. And we were just in his car talking just about the day school. And I was telling him about just how much I've changed. We were just talking identity and everything. And he honestly brought me to an epiphany in this conversation when it comes to my identity that I want to share with you guys. And it basically has to do with how I didn't know myself before going to SDS. And he compared it to his situation because he was put in public school pretty much up until 6th grade when he joined SDS. Whereas, like I mentioned in my last episode, SDS is K through 12 type school. And my parents put me there in 5K. So pretty much that school and that environment is all I knew. And at such a young age, worrying about being the only Black girl all the time, like worrying about my hair not looking like everyone else's, my clothes, my family's culture, that already sets the tone at such an early age for some false expectations that I feel like are put on me for how I'm supposed to act in this environment. So I guess in other words, what I'm trying to say is at such a young age, worrying about all those things so soon, just because simply the environment wasn't diverse. So I'm just thinking about fitting in all the time. I basically molded my personality at such a young age. I was contorting myself to like things that, these people like, or listen to the music they like, dress, everyone wears this here, let me dress this way. But Anthony brings up the point that in public school, he was in a diverse group of people. So he was able to make the friends he wanted to make, feel free to express himself the way he wanted to express himself, because in his environment, there was a lot of diverse ways of expression where I feel like, at my school at the time, there was just pretty much one type of individual. And yeah, there would be the odd ones out and everything, myself included. But I feel like there was really one type of person, which would make me feel like I had to contort myself. And I feel like one good point that I got from that is how just I never got a chance to know myself before molding myself. I actually wrote in here when I was kind of just reflecting on it. And I don't know, that conversation for me with Anthony in that moment, it just showed me, because I never really thought of it that way, that even those couple years, because me and Anthony still experienced the same things in middle school, like the stereotypical Hispanic jokes he got, stereotypical Black people jokes I got, plus African jokes, the usual type stuff in middle school. But at the same time, it's like it didn't cut as deep for Anthony, even though it cut deep, I'm sure, in his own ways. But it's like it probably didn't cut as deep for him in those moments than for me, because, he was already set in who he was as a person, identity-wise. And those other jokes, it's like, whatever. But it's like, for me, I don't know. It was more of a tense thing. Now, going off of that story, I do want to begin the discussion of my identity and self-growth, as well as anxiety and self-esteem. And specifically, what I want to discuss is just the reason for my loss in identity and the decisions I made to embrace it more, as well as how my anxiety and self-esteem kind of went hand in hand, and what it made me become and how I was able to take control of it finally. So let's begin. Now, I'm going to break this up in stages, starting from like my 5K through 4th grade, middle school stage, 5th through 8th. At least it went to 8th grade for middle school in my school. Some people's schools started 8th grade in high school. Like 8th grade was the high school starting point. But yeah, middle school, then the high school, 9th through 12th. Those are the stages we're going to go in. And then the college stage. But starting again, 5K through 4th grade, I already mentioned a good like surface level with that story at the beginning of this episode. Just about what I went through in 5K and just, feeling like the odd one out constantly. But as a kid, I had that in the back of my mind. I'm not going to say it was, I was just depressed every day I was going to school, but it was hard. I would go to school every day and that would be in the back of my mind. I'd still try to enjoy things, but I developed like this feeling that I wanted people to like me. Like, I just remember feeling like I wanted everyone to like me. And my mom would always remind me, not everyone will like you. But I didn't understand that. I just thought if I'm the only Black girl there, my only way to survive is just to be liked by everyone, have no enemies, and smooth sailing. Little did I know, life was not like that. But I feel like that already, with that mindset at such an early age, like I mentioned before, I was having anxiety. I didn't want to label it, didn't even know what anxiety was at the time, but me, my grown self, looking back, that was anxiety for myself that I was experiencing and was only the start that would develop over time. I also had anxiety about my culture too. One story I'll bring up is, honestly, like whenever it would be Grandparents' Day or just having like my family come to the school. And I loved Grandparents' Day, but, I already had kids making fun of my last name, like at recess and stuff. And, just making like the African jokes, because they'll hear my parents talk, they'll come in. My mom and dad's accents have developed over time for sure. You can still tell they have an accent, but definitely when it would be Grandparents' Day and my parents would come and be speaking and, they wouldn't sound like all the other parents, and my grandparents would be there. They'd be speaking in their tribal language to my grandparent or speaking French, switching in and out. And just sadly, like, I hate that I even felt this way, but it's like, it was embarrassing to me. Like, I genuinely felt embarrassed each time my parents and just family members would be on the phone in public speaking in that language. I'd like, even though I haven't felt that in years, but just thinking back and just even having to put myself back in these mindsets for you guys in these episodes, it's like, that was a real feeling I had. And I bet you, I haven't discussed this with my mom before, but I want to ask her, because I remember specifically getting on her in public Like, maybe this is a false remembering, but I remember, I want to say it was one of the grandparents there or something. I got on my mom and was like, can you stop? Or sort of bratty little kid thing. I can't believe I even said that or was like that. I hope I'm just making that up. But I just remember getting on her, telling her to stop, or in some sort of way, like, don't be talking like that. That's one thing I guess I'll show you guys, because I could keep going on and on. There's a lot of stories and instances that I had in my childhood lying over and over that my braids were real, that my braids were my hair. Oh my God, the lies were endless. So many things. But I feel like already, like I said before, such a young age, I was caring way too much about what people thought. Like, the way it really goes back to the braids for me, like the way I would lie about my hair. And it was really from just being afraid to, tell people the truth, for them to know the real me. Okay, one more story, because it low-key just popped into mind. Just to give you guys perspective of how I really let the anxiety get the best of me back then at that young age. There was a pool party. It was like somebody's birthday. We were at like some YMCA type center. Tell me why one of my braids fell, and I used to wear those braids still with like the string, it might, just come off. But I jump in the pool, want to do a little cannonball or something. I get out of the pool right after the cannonball. This girl's yelling, Alexis's hair is in the pool. My heart dropped. My little 8-year-old or whatever-year-old heart. I just remember looking at that pool and I see that little snake-like look of a hair just in the pool. And what do I say? I'll never forget this lie that I told. And I was swearing up and down. I don't remember if those girls believed it or not. But I literally told them, that's because, my mom was trying to cut my hair and she cut it a little bit. So it was just going to fall off. Something like that. That's how deep the lies went. That's how much I tried just saving people from knowing the truth, or fear of me not seeming like I'd be good enough. It was crazy. But moving on to middle school. And y'all, in middle school, there's no other way I could really say this. By middle school, I was brainwashed. And when I say brainwashed, I mean okay, I'm trying to think of a great way to put this. Let me look to the notes. Because, one, I refused braids. I remember my mom's sister, my Auntie Huguette. Love you, Auntie Huguette. But my aunt, she'd always do me and my sister's hair. It was either my Auntie Huguette or my Auntie Corel. But they did hair. They had their own braiding shop and stuff. By middle school, 5th grade specifically, I remember right when I got to middle school, I told my parents, I don't want braids anymore. But I was too ashamed to tell them the real reason why, that I wanted to fit in with other people. So I just lied like I always did. I was a liar. But I remember telling them and my aunts specifically, I just said I don't really like braids anymore. Just simple. I just went with that. I told them I don't really like braids. I want to let my hair breathe, whatever the case may be. I just kept saying no, I don't want to do braids. So that was just the start of my mom doing awful. Not my mom's work was awful, but looking back, I did not like them hairstyles on me. I should have just had braids, but just working with my own natural hair. And sometimes I would do it myself. And God, I was in middle school. I did not know how to do my natural hair myself, but I thought that was better than braids for some reason. But, that's when, because I went on a tangent, but that's when, I refused braids. And that, in a sense, was just me refusing my culture. I don't know, refusing who I am as an African American woman. Just, embracing that's protective style stuff I do with my hair. I started using jokes a lot to cope. And since I was even before middle school, I was always a jokester. I'd be getting in trouble in class, just trying to make people laugh and stuff. But I feel really by middle school, that's just the way I dealt with the subliminal, racial stuff that was going on, or, the silly racist jokes people will say to me, or where's Alexis and the dark jokes. Like, I'll even start making racist jokes about myself. That's how it would go in middle school. Like, that's even talking about this guy's like the way I was. But yeah, like I use jokes to cope. My style specifically was based on my peers. Have that right here. Like, I feel like looking back in middle school, I was still a happy middle schooler though. Another way I was brainwashed too is because I loved my school. Oh my goodness. And I'm not even trying to throw shade at the day school. Like I mentioned before, education and everything. They provided us with so much, so many resources. And I even talk about it still with my friend Emily today because she's a teacher. She's in the school system. She works in a public school. And she tells me how, and even just her telling me about her experiences working in public schools and just the kids she's having to deal with and the lack of resources even that they have. It's like, as much as a part of me wanted to know how it would be being in public school, like, I'm still grateful. I'm grateful for what I got, like being at the day school. But again, going back to the love my school part, like, I was genuinely happy there because I feel like, and tricked is the only word I can really think of right now, but it's like I tricked myself. Because when I was, 5K through 4th grade, like I said, I had in the back of my mind, like, I knew, like, I hate the conditions of the school. I hate how, okay, there's a new Black girl this year, but they leave by the next. Like, even though I'd be mentioning I was consistently the only Black girl there, I remember the most Black girls we had at one time was in 4th grade or something. It would be like 2, but they never stay more than 2 years at the day school, it felt like. I had that in the back of my mind when I was, in the elementary school part of that school. But by the time I went into middle school, I feel like that was just my mind processing it in the sense of, okay, I'm in middle school. Next is high school. I know I'm going to stay at this school forever, so there's no other choice but to be in it. So I was in it, loved the school, dressed like my peers, listened to the stuff, did whatever. Like, I did what the kids did there, and I made great friends there too. Like, some good friends that I still talk to this day, like, but I was a brainwashed girly. I was not fully there in middle school. But moving on to high school, the shit was getting old. Definitely this was the chapter where, final home stretch of that school. And, even though I was still in it, I was still dealing with whatever, but I definitely started speaking out. Like, this was my era of, I'm not taking this anymore. If I see weird stuff, I'm going to say it. If I see you being racist, I'm going to report that. Like, I was over it. I was over people getting away with stuff. I was tired. Like, basically, I'll bring up one situation we had, because, how I kept mentioning I was one of 3 Black girls in the whole entire high school, and 2 of them were in my grade. So basically the 3 were just in my grade, including myself. But before that 3rd one came, we have this little thing. I forgot what they called it, but it's like you're a leader. Like, it's a leadership position at the school where your role is to, when new students come, you shadow them, basically, or they're going to shadow you. I'm like messing up this explanation. But basically, it is a leadership role where when a new student comes to visit, see how the school is, they're going to be your shadow. They'll follow you around to your classes, lunch, and etc. And there was a girl who definitely bullied me through a lot of my time at the day school. At least towards the end there, I'll say it. Just, she was just not the greatest person. But she had that leadership role, and she had this Black girl who ended up joining our school shadowing her. And I remember the situation specifically. It was lunch. And mind you, I'm going to keep saying it, K through 12 school. So a lot of these people already at this point, I've been in high school. I've known these people since we've been in 4th grade, 5K, whatever. Like, we go way back. But basically, the girl, I remember we were all sitting at lunch, or it wasn't lunch. I think it was recess, but we were all in the cafeteria eating or whatever. And just all the girls in my grade were sitting together, including the shadow who was Black. And the girl who was in that leadership position, having this girl shadow her, she just starts saying this stuff. Because I remember one of the other Black girls who was already there at the school, and she had been at the school since 4th grade, she comes to the table. What I loved about this girl is she was way more outspoken than I am. And she would just say what comes on her mind. But the awful thing that came with that at that school is, she'd be outspoken about, racial issues and this, that, and the third, but people would see that as negative. So that's why she'd be more like that. And I'd be a little bit more reserved about it, but still low-key on that energy. But this girl, let's call her Mary. But this girl, Mary, who was the other Black girl who had already been at our school, comes to see the girl in the leadership position and the Black girl who's shadowing her. And it's like, oh my God, yay, another Black person. And I'm thinking in my head, this girl's saying exactly what I'm thinking. But, she just starts asking the girl who's shadowing questions, just trying to make her feel good, whatever. And then I remember the girl, and I don't even want to butcher this conversation, but I just remember the phrase she used that upset me. She, once the girl, the Black girl who had been there, Mary, got finished asking her questions, how do you feel at this school, even though there's no Black people, whatever. Just, being open about the situation, but just talking her up, whatever. I remember Mary said she'd be right back. Maybe she went to go get some water, bathroom, I don't know. So Mary leaves the table, and then girl in leadership position is all I remember back in 4th grade, Mary was the whitest Black girl you'd ever see. It was just that phrase there. Mary was the whitest Black girl. Now, we all know what that term means, but it struck a nerve, her saying that. And specifically, saying it once Mary left the table. And Mary was my friend too at the time. It's no. And I had taken comments like that, me being a white Black girl for so long at that school. It's for her to say that, especially when she has a Black girl shadowing her, it was I thought that was insensitive. And I'm mentioning this story too, because this was my first instance where I spoke up for myself, seeing it and taking it. I remember I was shaken. I ended up walking away after saying what I needed to say, but I still said it. But basically, I remember girl in the leadership position says that comment. And then I'm what do you mean by that? I questioned her. Mind you, at this point, it's not only me, leadership girl, and the girl shadowing. There's probably 6, 7 other people at the table, all silent. All silent. And, it's just me and leadership girl talking. I'm just what do you mean by that? And she's oh, you know exactly what I mean by that. You know how Mary was, or just keep. And I'm no, what do you mean by that? Because whitest Black girl, just, how this conversation was going. I wanted her to say what she meant by that. And obviously, if she really explained it, it would have been insensitive, because clearly calling someone a white Black girl, we all know it's a dig on Black people, because usually when you're referred to as a white Black girl, it's you seem more articulate, just, it's a way of saying that Black people aren't usually smart. You don't know what I'm saying. It was hurtful and I hated it. And I remember we went back and forth, probably for a good 10 seconds of me trying to get her to say it. And she wouldn't. So I got up because, I was already feeling a little shaken. That was my first whatever. And I just go to before she comes back. I said, come with me. I said, come with me, girl. Oh, I think I might have said her name, so I'm going to definitely block that out. We're just walking back to our high school building, because our high school building is separate from the middle school building, lower school building, so forth. But I go with her. I basically tell her what went down. And, I remember shaking. I was shaking, telling her it, because she's experienced in her own way, but she's experienced things at that school too, just like I did. But she has her own personal one. But I remember, I was just upset telling her about it, but this girl, she was quick to anger. She was oh, As soon as I told her what she said, she was let's go to the principal. We went to the principal, And also the principal at the time, so understanding, so amazing, and basically sympathized with us heavy. We got our stuff done. That leadership girl, she ended up getting kicked off not only the honor council, but that leadership position as well. So that was the start, because this all happened freshman year. And this was the start of just our beat, like, being solidified, because I got her kicked off, like, all the thingies, leadership roles. But yeah, that was honestly an empowering moment for me, because we got her. Like, I saw it, I reported it, and shit was done about it. And it felt really good. So that was a time of my life where, you know, I was finally starting to be outspoken. And then you guys know how that high school career ended with me giving that speech and, you know, finally feeling freed. Like, I finally aired out everything that I needed to air out to that school, to my peers. And I felt like just in time for me to start anew in Charlotte, North Carolina at UNC Charlotte. So let's start that chapter of college, because college is definitely where, specifically like my freshman year, I had just split from my best friend at the time because of that N-word situation. So even though I was excited for college, little did I realize, but looking back, I was going into college pretty vulnerable, in a pretty desperate headspace, especially when it came to like finding friends and that sense of community. But besides the just the underlying anxiety and self-esteem issues I had going into college, just UNC Charlotte, for the first time in my life, gave me an environment where I felt like I was able to decide who I wanted to be around and how I wanted to dress. And, you know, I was not afraid to express my likes and dislikes. One heavy thing for some reason that comes into mind, anime. Loved anime all my life. I hid that at my former school. Like, it was seen as nerdy and not cool. And I feel like a lot of people can relate when it comes to anime. Like, unless you were a boy. I feel like when you're a boy, it's a different story. But, you know, at least back then. Now anime is cool. Meg Thee Stallion made it cool, whatever. But, like, I just realized that college really gave me my free reign into deciding who do I want to be. But the downsides to that free reign is I did get into some things where I thought was me, but wasn't me. Like, let's talk aesthetics for a second here, side note. Because I came to Charlotte, coming from a small town, South Carolina. Charlotte, big city, you know, people always caring about their fits, fashion. Like, I love the culture here. But at the same time, like, I found myself feeling like I wanted to fit into an aesthetic that I didn't really, like, now I'm realizing wasn't me. Like, with Instagram, I feel like the culture, especially for Black women, like, you know, in Charlotte, when it comes to like Instagram, it's like, you know, that bad bitch aesthetic, like always having the fit on point, taking those pictures when you go out. And I was that girl. I'm telling you, I was that girl. I used to get my fits together. I used to lay wigs all the time, make sure I look good. And it was fun. Like, it's not like I didn't have fun doing it or anything. I still kind of miss it, even though I'm in my lock journey now. But I miss changing my like hair like every week or multiple times a week and going to Uptown. I remember when I first moved here, it was like pre-COVID and clubs were 18 plus. So I would just be going out with my friends. We'd take the light rail and, you know, we just get cute, take pictures, go out, come back. They had college night Thursdays. It was fun. But, you know, I realized like as time went on, specifically like freshman-ish sophomore year, I liked doing those things, but it wasn't me though. And I quickly, like once I went back home once COVID hit and we all went back home, by the time I came back, I had already moved off of campus because it was just so much ruckus with COVID and moving back on campus. That's when I just decided to be off campus, and the friends that I made at the time, I just moved in with them. But over time, I realized that really wasn't me. And I love getting cute, you know, dolled up every now and again, but I feel like my aesthetic is just a lax girly. Like, you know, get my oversized sweaters, oversized pants, like comfy cute is my aesthetic. And then I like to wow people every now and again, remind you who I am type. Y'all get what I'm saying. But I really found myself once I came to Charlotte. I could really get into the details, but that's for other episodes. We'll have it centered around friends and specifically the relationships I made, like from the past compared to here, and the bad patterns I went through with friends and how I fixed that. But to sum it all up, because I could go on forever, from the beginning of college to the end, I made a lot of realizations with myself, and college specifically, because I think I mentioned this before, how I wasn't really aware that I had anxiety or self-esteem issues until I got to college. And it was hard facing the reality, honestly, that I had self-esteem and anxiety issues, because for so long I was in survival mode that once I got to UNCC and I had all this freedom and I could choose to, be who I wanted to be, I sort of found myself falling back into those patterns with trying to fit in with a certain crowd and make myself a certain way. But even though it was out of my own choice, I chose that, I see those people. I like how they dress. I want to be like that. But in reality, it's like, I still feel like that was me reverting in a way to that usual mindset that I'm in, trying to follow instead of leading by example, in a sense. Like just being unapologetically who I want to be and not caring if I'm in a crowd or not. And I feel like, I just graduated this past December, and from where I was at the beginning of college to now, I've already graduated. I'm a few months into post-grad, and I feel great. I've been in therapy since this past summer. I think I started July of 2023 because I really wanted to take that next step. I really don't count the little counseling help and stuff, because I did a couple of sessions of that at UNCC, but I actually got a therapist for myself this past summer. And even though I've made those realizations and I've done the work with myself, I feel like it's different when you actually seek therapy and you're actually having that second input on what you're trying to do. And I feel like from that, I've really grown. I see, let me put it this way. I see now the person that I am. I am actively being that person. It's just a matter of getting it more and more to the point of just it being unapologetic. But now I'm that person and who says what's on their mind, and, I see something wrong and I'm not afraid to speak up about it. And that's growth. But I think this is where I'm going to stop the episode here. That honestly has been my identity journey. Even though I feel like I've been talking like I have it all figured out, I definitely don't have it all figured out at all, but I definitely have made great strides from 2019 to when I left my high school to now currently in 2024. I'm already graduated and I'm in the adult world and I'm just trying to make a life for myself. And even though I still have work to do, I personally feel one thing that I'm also trying to work on and improve in myself is be able to appreciate the strides that I've made. Yes, there are strides, but I feel like for so long I've been focusing on, but there's still more I got to do. There's still that person I can be. But 2019 me, if I were to look at me right now, saying everything I'm saying on this podcast today, I would not have had the stomach for it. And that's growth. I'm reminding myself that you guys listening out there, recognize the growth that you've made. Even though I feel like we have so much to work on in ourselves, we also need to appreciate the work we've done, though, to get to where we are. Even though there's still more work to be done, we need to appreciate more. But I'm going to end it right here, and I'm going to see you guys next time.
So let's ride.